Voila. Okay, and then finally, let me share my screen. Okay, and the notes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I see that we have like 7 individuals with us this evening. I'm trying my best to speak as loud as I can. If you cannot hear me, just wave or make a sound. I'm losing my voice a little bit. Tonight, I want to talk about the breakdown, a key to better health, and something that I need to take advantage of. I really do. We always talk about the laws of health, rest. That's my culprit. Um, I'm a, I'm, I have a tendency to go where I'm called. If there's a need, I'm a tendency to be there. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for me. Usually for the person that I'm going to, but sometimes it isn't for me. So this week was a very trying week. My days were long in order to make today available. So my voice was a little strained. So please pardon the sound. But I want to take a look at this idea of the breakdown, a key to better health. Something that I think we don't really pay a lot of attention to, how we really get sick. What is sickness? I was listening before, and sometimes we don't realize that in a moment, bang, it's all done. We get sick and we fall, and we don't really know why. Now, I know where my voice is gone. I'll tell you, I didn't sleep yesterday or the day before. End of story. I didn't sleep 2 days. I'm exhausted. And I usually lose my voice when that happens. So I know there's a predictor. You do certain things, there's a definite outcome. There's predictors to a certain way of living. And sometimes we don't pay close attention to those small things. They seem to be minuscule, but they really are not at all. They're very important. And so I want to take a look at one thing in particular this evening. And I'm hoping to not spend too much time because I want to answer some questions that might be here. I think I don't want to information overload. I want to make sure that what we have, we understand thoroughly because it is really important. So I'm going to go to my first slide here, and it says breakdown essential knowledge. To build a house, you need a design, a plan drawn up by someone who knows how. God is the master designer. Every successful builder or physician throughout history has stood on the shoulders of God and his master plan. So our bodies are designed in a particular way. We can resist it. We could argue against it. We could pretend it doesn't bother us, but that's to your own demise, right? Our bodies were designed a particular way, and God designed it. Nothing is going to change that fact. It isn't uncommon in the age in which we live. We have people confused about whether or not they're male or female. We have males claiming to be females and females claiming to be males. And those who say, don't tell me, I will decide at a different point and I might switch between two. So I've heard it, I've experienced it, you deal with it almost on a daily basis. It is what people do nowadays. But here's the thing, regardless of what the male says, whether he calls himself a female or not, whether or not he has gotten surgery to make himself look like a female and has gotten her parts, his DNA reveals that he's not a female. His chromosomes tell me he's not a female. And if they dig him up 20 years from now or 5,000 years from now and they look at his bones, they will tell you he was a male. We can't change the master plan. It's just as simple as that. It is the same thing with the female. She could take hormones to make her grow facial hair, It doesn't change how she's made. So when we are building something, when we are building our bodies, we need to understand that there is a plan behind it. And when we fail to follow that plan, the body will indeed shut down. It will break. Now, I want to say something here. Most people don't recognize it, that they are heading towards major disaster. Most, just about everyone that I encounter, don't realize that they're going to have a major disaster down the road. And when you try to tell them, they don't really think about it. Let me give an example. A lot of people, they reach 50, 60 years old and they start to develop back pain. They might develop slip disc, um, osteoporosis. No, not that one. That's in the bunch. Slip disc, back pain, really bad bursitis. And they don't know what it is. They think it just came. They say it's a product of being old. The reality really isn't. There was something happening all throughout their life that they were not paying attention to because they really weren't following the master designer's plan. And so what usually happens, it shows up at a later date. Since COVID, I think it was COVID, since COVID, I've been getting quite a bit of calls, really from the Adventist Church, more so than anything else, of these chronic disease that exploded over the last 3 years. And everybody's been asking me why. And then I do my normal. I send them out this form and I have them fill out the form. They answer a bunch of questions. And then once I look at all the answers, I can tell them why it's happening. I watch a breakdown in God's plan. And when it breaks down, there is going to be a consequence. And that's the part that we don't really pay attention to. And what I'm talking about this evening, the bad part about it, there's no real test that can tell you how far you are in the process. It's just going to happen unless you take steps to prevent it from happening. So I want to start with this important thing, food. I always ask the question, what is food? I actually wrote this to save my voice a little bit. I made some changes here. I wanted someone to read this for me. So is anybody willing to read, or can they see what's on the screen if you're not on a cell phone? If not, I'll read it. Okay, I will read it for everyone. It says, what is food? Food consists of protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Most of us know that our diet should be composed roughly of 50% carbohydrates, 30% protein, 20% fat. These are the building blocks of food. Most of us understand that vitamins and minerals are not made by our bodies, and we must consume them to prevent deficiencies. In fact, certain vitamins and minerals are routinely added to our food supply to prevent problems such as goiter. Excuse me for a second. Yeah, goiter. That's why you need iodine, rickets, vitamin D, and birth defect folic acid. However, most of us don't know that these items do not perform work or action. Said another way, they are useless to the body as they are. So most times you will say to someone, or someone will say to you, you are what you eat. Right? People say that all the time, you are what you eat. And so I usually ask the question, is that a true statement? And so I ask this group the same question. Are you what you eat? What do you think? Are you what you eat? No inputs? Well, the answer is no. Sounds weird, right? Because all your life you've been told you are what you eat. You're not really. Go ahead. Yeah, you're really not what you eat. You are what you digest. No, it seems to be, wait a minute, eating is digesting. No, not really. A lot of people eat food, but their body is not capable of digesting all the food. One of the things we see here, speaking of America, you see these protruding stomachs. People are obese. But then when you check, you say, wait a minute, they are missing a lot of nutrients. They're not getting the vitamins that they need. And you're kind of like puzzled. How is that possible? How is it possible that they could be so obese, but yet not nutritionally sound? You see, you're not what you eat, you are what you digest. When we take food into our system, it's really useless unless your body can digest it. And so often people they eat a lot of food, sometimes eat a lot of bad food, and only thing that happens, it sits there waiting to be digested. And if it isn't digested, it putrefies. It creates bacterial pools, to say in a nice way, and it strains the body in many ways. One in particular, when you don't digest your food correctly and the food begins to ferment, we all have what you call an immune system. When the food sits in the gut too long, the immune system now has to work to prevent you from getting ill because you didn't digest your food correctly. So we are not what we eat, we are what we digest. Okay? So I want to just go over a couple of these things really quickly. Oh, I forgot the time. This really quickly. Protein. Why do we need protein? You know, well, it's necessary for growth and development. It acts in the formation of hormones, enzymes, antibodies. It maintains alkaline and acidic balance, which is important. You know, you don't want your body too acidic, because if it is, guess what happens? Cancer comes. Cancer comes, lives in acid, loves it, right? Protein also is a source of heat and energy. The body utilizes protein to create the heat that you need. You know, oftentimes it shows up, you might have a senior relative or someone who's always cold, can't get warm. It's usually telling me that their bodies is having a tough time digesting protein, because protein is one of the harder foods to break down. So it's usually they have that issue because their body is struggling to digest the protein. And so you need to work on that. Okay, protein, if it's deficient, it leads to fatigue, loss of appetite, edema. You know, you get really sluggish, tired. But I want to say something I didn't include here, which I'm going to add when I'm finished with this. Protein is needed for mental balance. Yeah. Now, most people say, I don't know if I agree with that. Now, I have a bunch of children somewhere. 6 of them, they're all adults now, right? All adults. I think the youngest one is 21, 22, all grown big children. But I remember this from when they were young. If they didn't eat on time, they became very annoyed. They start to yell, you know, scream. They wanted to eat. They couldn't function until they ate, and then they will calm down. And it was usually because there was not enough protein in the system. Protein helps with the mind. So sometimes people are having issues thinking, concentrating. They might need to eat. They get agitated quickly. They might need to simply eat, just like little children. Yeah. You know, anyone who had a child, a baby, they don't eat. They become quite tough to deal with. Now, prolonged deficiencies of protein lead to vomiting and diarrhea. Common, okay? That's what protein is. What's a good sauce? You know, I put up healthy choices here. Chickpeas, cashews, tofu, kidney beans, soy, sunflower seeds, almonds, oats, black beans, you know, whole grains, walnuts. Now, I chose these over, say, animal products. Now, I'm not going to kill someone for eating animal products. I don't get into that business. But animal products just has too many negative effects to really consume it. That's really the downside to animal products, right? But some people are gonna eat it, they're gonna eat it, right? You're gonna say it's clean food, guys, clean food, sure. But you open the door to damaging your health down the road. Usually what you have with animal products is just too much phosphorus, too much fats. Those things build up slowly over time. Then you reach 65 or 55, and then one day pressures through the sky, and you wonder, where did that come from? Yeah, what you were eating to get your protein source. So while it can maintain a life, I decided not to add animal products here because to me, the cost benefit ratio is just not worth it. You know, it's just to me is a math thing. Everything in my mind is a math It's a question. Is it worth it? When I do the numbers, does it make sense? And it just really doesn't make sense to me. I've watched too many people die. I'm not in for that. And so I did not include that. But some might say I'm going to eat animal products, to get my source of protein. And if you must get your protein that way, go and buy yourself a George Foreman grill or get a barbecue, and you want all the fat to run out and burn in the fire. Now, I know people say, well, that's what makes the food taste good. Yes, it is, but it's also what carries the disease. The fat is not what you want in your system. It creates too many problems. So if you must eat meat, get rid of or eliminate the fat. Hard to do because it's in the meat itself. And then you have those who will eat fish. Fish is not a good source of low fat because I've cooked fish. I don't need to add oil to the skillet. It just comes out of the meat itself. The fat content is far too high. So when we're talking about protein, the best way to get the protein is from a plant-based source. Okay, and either source will help with these things. Develop your growth, make you stronger, build enzymes, create hormones, antibodies in your system, help balance your alkaline levels. So that's what protein does in the system, right? Then we have carbohydrates. There's a list here. Oats. Now, if I want to tell you one thing about to prevent the breakdown, oats is probably in my list one of the best foods you could eat. Period. The end. Fiber, carbs, protein, its ability to absorb fat that's deposited in your system out of the system. It's just a superfood. But it's a good source of carbohydrates. So is brown rice, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, whole wheat bread, quinoa, and a list of other things. But here's the thing. As much as carbohydrates are good, and especially complex carbohydrates, it doesn't mean that everyone can eat them. People are always asking me, can I have this? And I said, I can't tell you unless I know more about you. Some of us have different illnesses and maladies that carbohydrates are just not good for you. Okay, I was treating a lady and I didn't know it until I put together her diet, and then she just began to bend over. Her body couldn't do carbohydrates. All right, I have a son. He suffers from seizures. 2 years old, he's fine, everything is fine. One day he sits down, he falls on the ground. What in the world is happening? He falls on the ground again. What's happening? He couldn't eat carbohydrates. So everybody's now getting onto this keto diet fad. He had to live on it to be seizure free. So before I say you must have carbohydrates, I need to know you. So if you want to ask that question, that's going to be my answer. I need to know you. And so I just can't answer those broad questions. But carbohydrates are important because they provide energy for the body to function, muscle extensions, exertion. Let me give an example. In high school, I used to wrestle. Yes, I wanted to go to the Olympics and all that good stuff. And so I used to do a lot of running. I ran the New York Marathon just to stay in shape and stuff like that. And we always know what happened before the marathon. We have carbo load the night before. You go and you eat as much pasta as you can, beet as you can, bread as you can to get all this carbs into your system. Why? Because as the body, becomes tired, it draws on the carbohydrates for energy. So that's what carbohydrates do. They give the body energy so that it can function. Okay? So it's important to get carbs. So a low carbohydrate diet or the inability to digest or assimilate carbohydrates results in excessive protein breakdown to maintain blood levels. Okay, and result in the loss of energy and fatigue. Now, I intentionally wrote that this way because if you don't get enough carbohydrates, by default, you're not going to be able to break down protein. The 2-for-1 destruction. So you're not getting enough carbohydrates, can't break down whatever protein you do take in. You start to have mental problems. You might get headaches. You might get fatigue. You might get aggressive. Or if you're a small child, you start throwing things. Yeah. So it's very important that you can intake. And then also this idea of assimilating carbohydrates, because you're not what you eat, you're what you break down or assimilate. or digest. If you're not digesting it, putting it in is just going to come out the other side and your body will not use it. So carbohydrates are needed in order to effectively break down protein. Now, prolonged deficiencies cause disturbed balance between water and electrolytes, sodium, potassium, chloride. Now, let me tell you why that's important. Some people don't eat a lot of carbs, and then they'll walk into the office or they'll give me a call and they'll tell me, I have a regular heartbeat. That's what they say, I have a regular heartbeat. Or they'll come in, boy, my ankles are really swelling. Or I'm getting these headaches every now and then. And so I started asking them, what is your diet like? What are you eating? And I have to do that because I need to know what the cause is. So if you're not getting enough carbohydrates, you're going to have this imbalancement in your electrolytes. Cramps, terrible muscle cramps in the leg. Okay? Body cramps. All of a sudden, the potassium is not going to be absorbed correctly, and potassium helps keep your heartbeat regular. So it's important that we ingest the things that are necessary to have quality life, because if not, you're going to have a problem. And the thing that happens about not getting sufficient minerals, vitamins, carbohydrates, protein, is that they have a tendency to show up later. 20, you don't think about it. 30, you don't think about it. You might think a little bit when you're 40s, you get your first sign of pain. But you get to 50. Like the other day, I sent a picture out. I'm 60 years old, and I was climbing a tree. I'm up in the tree, maybe about 40 feet up in the tree. And I'm actually pruning the tree because I'm cutting down all these trees around the house. I don't want them to fall on the house. And so I sent the picture out, and people says, "Are you crazy? You don't want to fall out of that tree. You're too old to be climbing the tree." I said, "Why?" See, most people say that because when you get into your 50s, you think twice before doing stuff like that. You think twice before you get out of bed. You said, "Oh, I don't want to step down there. I might hurt my ankle." You're not running down the street anymore. And most people think it's just a product of aging. It isn't. It is actually a symptom of a breakdown. You see, that's what I want to get us to understand tonight. Many people that we call aging is not aging at all. It is a breakdown in their system because of what they're not eating or what they're not digesting or assimilating into the system. So carbohydrates are essential. Then we have here fats. This is the part we all like, right? Because fat makes food taste good. Oh, yes, it makes food taste good. You take all the fat out of something, it's like, it's dry and bland. You don't want it. You want the fat. But fats can be dangerous while they are essential at the same time. So you have what you call fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. They come through fat. That's how you're going to get them. They're not found in non-fatty foods. They're in fatty foods. So you need a certain level of these fats in your diet. You can always tell when someone has too much of it around the rings of their nails, they become black. They are black around the rings. The ends become darkened because they don't have enough, they have too much of these fats in their diet. Their cuticles, their nails crack, get brittle nails sometimes. Too much. The downside also of the fat is that's where all toxins and pollutions are stored. Fats. This is also why if you're going to eat meat, you need to get the fat out because that's where the poison is stored, in the fat. The Bible says the fat is the Lord's. That's what it was. When you brought your sacrifice in the morning, the priest would slice open the animal and take out the caul, the kidney, all the fat, put it on the altar, and they'll melt it down to make oil. Yeah. Because that's where the toxins were. They're there today too. and much more toxins today. I don't care where you're from on the globe. More toxins are in the food. It's in the air, it's in the water, and it's stored. There's a term called biomagnification. Biomagnification. It basically means that, let me give you an example, things build up. So a lot of people eat fish, right? And so you say, I have good fish, because I live in a good neighborhood, right? That's people tell me that all the time. And I ask people this question, do you know all the water is connected, right? fish, 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 fish swim all over the place. But biomagnification means this. Say fish usually eat fish. Let me say that. Fish eat fish. So there's a small little fish that's swimming in the pond. And he might just eat some, I don't know what it is, some kind of pesticides he found in the water, some kind of toxin, small fish. And all the fish are eating up from the bottom. That's what they're eating. It's just in the water. No big deal. You catch one of those fish, you eat it, you won't even know you ate the toxin, right? However, that fish is eaten by a larger fish. And that larger fish ate about 10 of those little fish. So he has the toxins from 10 fish in that larger fish. But guess what? That fish also, he's about this big. He got eaten by a fish about that big. Right? 7, 8 inch fish. He ate the other fish. He ate 4 of them for breakfast or for lunch. So he has the toxins of how many fish? All of the small ones that was eaten by the one he ate, plus the one he ate. But this little fish, you don't want it on the table. You went out and you said, bring me a good piece of this. So you want a 12-foot fish. But that 12-foot fish ate the 8-foot fish, which ate the 4-foot fish, which ate the 2-inch fish, if I can say that fast enough. And so what happens, the toxins biomagnify. So by the time you get it on that table and you like the fat, because that's where the toxins are stored, and you spread the fat so it tastes good, right? Now you have the toxins of all those fish that have accumulated in the last fish that you're eating now coming into your system. Biomagnification. It leads to this breakdown in the system that shows up when you're 45, 55, 60. And someone's going to say, well, my grandmother ate. Yeah, they also didn't use the same toxins then as they do now. So never fall for that. Don't let anybody trap you with that. So if you hear that, they don't use the same poison. Things are totally changed. You know, because I hear that quite a bit. Well, Jesus ate fish, yeah, but they didn't have DDT. They didn't have pesticides. They didn't have mercury poison running all over the place. The waters are contaminated. Remember, the earth doesn't get better, it gets worse. About a few years ago, in Japan, a nuclear reactor exploded and all of the toxins ran into the water. And they notified us in America. Why? We don't live in Japan. Because fish migrate. That's why they told us in America. And recently, Japan, through some means, say they cleaned it up, and now they want to get their fish off the list, so other people, they're going to dump some of the water back into the water, and their surrounding neighbors were all protesting. Why? Because they understand this idea that fish move from location to location, and they carry the toxins with them. And the toxins are stored in fats. You know, I do quite a few cancer patients, and breast cancer is a big thing. And you know why breast cancer becomes a big thing? Because the breasts, as much as men like them, are full of fat. And guess what fats do? Store toxins. That's why that's usually in the breast. That's where there's an abundance of fat. So fat, as much as we need them, we need to make sure that we're not having excess. So we do need them because they supply essential acid needed for growth, health, and smooth skin. So the skin is really dry, cracky, you know, the nails won't grow right, the hair just keeps breaking. Might need some fat in your diet. The question becomes, where do you get them from? Because you could get fats from your nuts and grains. Yeah, that will do the same thing as your fat you get from animal products. But the end results are different. Okay, in terms of the quality of your health. So while it's available, the same fat that's necessary, the amino acids that are necessary, okay, the fatty acids that are necessary are available both in a plant-based source and an animal-based source. The outcome, the source that you choose, could lead to some serious problems. Okay, it's waking up in the morning and says, I don't feel good, and going to the doctor to discover that, sorry, but you got stage 4 cancer. Makes a big difference. See, cancer doesn't usually come by mistake. And I say that because I have a patient, interesting story. Her entire family died from cancer or is dying. And so she came to me because she said, I don't want to go like them because they all went the traditional way. And so far, so good. God has been good because I didn't really think she would make it to this point, but she has. Okay. So I'm thankful for that. But the outcome is different depending on where you get your fat, also where you get your protein. The outcomes are vastly different because one is going to lead to a breakdown in the system. And one still can, because temperance is the right or the proper or the correct foods in the right amount. So if you drink too much water, you will die. Yes. And you figure water, yeah. Temperance is the right foods, right amount. And then we have vitamins and minerals. Now, are present in varying quantities in specific foods and eats absolutely necessary for proper growth and maintenance of health. Vitamins. With a few exceptions, the body cannot synthesize vitamins. They must be supplied in the diet or in dietary supplements. Okay, so you really can't make them. Now, you can make vitamin D, stand in the sun, but you have to be in the sun for quite a bit of time and live in the right location. So your body can make some vitamins, but the rest you need to get. Now, minerals exist in the body and in food in organic and inorganic combinations. All tissues and internal fluids of living things contain varying quantities of minerals. One of the ways we get minerals is when we stand outside and we ingest, and the dust is blowing, and the minerals go in your nose. You call it dust, but it also includes minerals. Yeah, the body can utilize it. 4 or 5% of the human body weight is minerals. Now, your iron, your copper, yeah, minerals. In fact, I have a plant here called comfrey. I have a garden in the back of the house or a small farm, depending on who you ask. And I intentionally got comfrey for 2 purposes. Interesting: to kill weeds and then to use it as fertilizer. Comfrey has a tendency to suck out all the vitamins and minerals out of the soil. So if you put it where there's weeds, it will suck out all the vitamins and minerals so the weeds can't grow. So that's how I keep boundaries to my area, by planting comfrey along fence lines and gardening lines. Now, the same comfrey, take off 4 or 5 leaves, chop them up small, put them into a bucket of water, sit it in the sun. Ooh, and it stinks like if a horse was living in the bucket. It makes plant food because all the minerals leach back into the water. Then I use that same water to fertilize the plants. And guess what I do with those plants? I eat them. Why? Because I want vitamins and minerals. So you can find vitamin and minerals everywhere, and they're very important and essential to your health. Because if you don't get them, it will lead to a breakdown. They are vital to the overall mental and physical well-being. Minerals, yeah. Great for here. Thinking issues you might be going through. It could be that your body is not assimilating or digesting food correctly. Yeah. And they're needed by the human body, and they must be supplied in terms of minerals because we don't make them. We must get them from a source. And there's another part of food called fiber. Now, the interesting about fiber is that it doesn't really break down. One is soluble, water-soluble fiber, but it doesn't really break down. But fiber is important as much as we don't break it down. I have a I have a couple of patients who are on a weight program, and so we increased their fiber. And I found this uh, not a recipe, but this product from another nutritionist who helps to give large doses of fiber in relatively small quantities of servings, right? And so I've been testing this product and it works a little bit too well. So when you use the product, you will live in the bathroom. So plan not to go anywhere for about 2 days because your body doesn't digest the fiber. It uses it to get rid of things that might be harmful to the body. This is why fiber can help to reduce the cholesterol and the fat levels in the blood. So a person who has high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, high cholesterol levels, needs to increase their take of that superfood oatmeal because oatmeal is filled with fiber. And what it does is it absorbs the fat out of the blood, which actually is causing the cholesterol issues and the high blood pressure, and it presses it and pushes it out of the system. That's what the fiber does. It helps to stimulate and clean the intestinal tract. Now, let me talk just a little bit about that for a moment. This is where a lot of people have a breakdown, especially if they're meat eaters. And now I'm saying heavy meat eaters because I do have people that I put on, I'm reducing their meat intake, but they're not vegetarians. But the ones who heavy meat eaters, meaning they eat it more than twice a day, they usually have a tendency to lack absorption of vitamins. And what usually happens, meat is not friendly to the body. So it have a tendency to clog you up. So a person who's a meat eater, they might go to the bathroom, sometimes go twice a week to do number two. And they think that's cool. No, you should go maybe 3 times a day. So if you're going twice a week, you are backed up severely. But here goes the negative thing to that. When the system is backed up, I should have put a picture of that. How could I illustrate this quickly? Let me grab a piece of paper because this is a very important point here. When the system is backed up, there's something that happens within the system. I don't have a piece of paper that I could use. Yes, I do. Give me 1 second. I want to illustrate this and put it on the screen for you. When the system is backed up, especially with a meat eater, I'm going to do this in stages. I want to make sure we can see this in stages. I am going to make an intestine. So don't knock the picture because it's done really quickly. I need to get a red pen. I hope everyone can see this. I can see it. Can everyone see that? It's just a circle, right?
Yes, Doc, we see a circle.
Yeah, it's just a circle. Now, when a person is a heavy meat eater, what happens, I'm doing this as fast as I can. I should have thought about this before. This is what happens with the product in the meat. Now, let me make sure I can see that. Now, this might be a little harder to see. It's no longer a circle, but you see these little circles around the circle. The circle has now gotten smaller. Can we see
Yes.
that?
Yes.
What those do, they block the absorption of your vitamins and minerals into the intestinal walls. So the person who's a heavy meat eater has a tendency to be malnutrition, suffer from malnutrition. The food cannot be absorbed through the deposits on the intestinal walls, and it just goes right through. So while they think it's no big deal, I feel fine, they're actually setting themselves up for major problems down the road. Because remember, you are what you digest, not just what you eat. And if the food cannot be digested through your intestinal walls, you're going to have a major problem. Now, it might show up, as I said, as bursitis. It might show up as back pain in your 50s, all right? A slip disc, all because of a digestion problem, because there was too much meat when you were younger and not enough fiber in the diet. So what the fiber comes in and does, because it's not digested, it presses against the meat buildup or the fat buildup against the walls of your intestines and presses it out so that your body can begin to absorb all the nutrients as it should and prevent you from becoming ill down the road. So when a person has a low fiber diet, it's usually associated with heart disease. One, why? Because just like this represents the intestines, the exact same things happen within the walls and the arteries. They get so packed up, and I had tons of these pictures I could have put up. The walls and the arteries get so packed up that there's very little space for the blood to flow. And when that happens, your pressure goes up. Just like that. And then they start putting you on pills. And then the pills give you a false sense of I'm getting better, right? That's what it is. But you're not really not getting better. You're actually getting worse. That's the downside of the pills. Because of that false idea, well, the doctor gave me a pill. I feel much better now. I can walk. He never stopped what was causing the problem. So the problem is actually growing inside of you until he gives you well, take a stronger dose and take a stronger dose and take a stronger dose. And then all of a sudden, well, we need to do open heart surgery because there's no more stronger doses for you. We need to remove what was building up inside of the arteries. And not only in the arteries, in the vein. Like I wear glasses, but I have a major problem. I can't really wear my glasses anymore. What has happened, I had what it's called now, an issue with my eye. And so I decided to treat myself. And so I do what I normally do with other people. And I used a potato, and what is this thing here? I forgot the name of this juice. But anyway, a potato and another drink, time tea, potato and time tea to treat my eye. Because what had happened, my tear ducts had gotten clogged. And so normally what you do, you come in, they'll examine you with the ENT, and then they'll just take out the tear duct, and for the rest of your life, you'll put drops. That's the quick, instant procedure. Whereas if you use a potato in time tea, it might take you about a week. But what happens, you unclog it, the fat oozes out one morning, you see all the fat just fills your eye, and then voila, problem went away. But what I didn't know was that it was also removing the apparently fat that was building up behind the eye itself within the veins itself. And so now one eye sees so much better than the other that I have to go to the doctor to get a new prescription because I'm like off balance now. So the glasses just make me crazy. I say that to say fiber prevents that from happening. Now I'm a vegetarian and I had that problem. So those who are not vegetarians, you probably have the problem and don't know it. So fiber is removing fats. This is why the heart disease can be turned around. This cancer is usually an issue that is because you allow the toxins to stay, and guess where toxins form? In the fat. That's how it works to reduce the cancer risk, removing the fats. And you usually find the cancer in the colon and the rectum. Why? Because that's where the meat is building up on the walls of the intestines. And because there's not enough fiber to push it out, the body must then engage the immune system to try to fight it, but it's just not strong enough to get through the fat that's blocking the walls. And you go down this road and the doctor comes and he takes out a piece of your intestines, but he never tells you what the cause was. Diverticulosis, same thing. The walls in diverticulosis here, what happens, the walls get so filled with fat that in order to get food in or out, holes begin to pop up in your intestines. That's ultimately what happens. Or leaky gut, same thing. because the intestinal walls are clogged. Easiest remedy, diet change, right? Varicose veins, yeah. The veins are bulging because the fat are blocking the veins, varicose veins. And that's what's telling you. So when you see that, diet change, because if it's happening in the veins in my legs, it's happening in the veins in my eye, the veins in my brain. So I become a little slower, a little lethargic. You're not putting it together because no one's talking about this. See, we are setting ourselves up for a breakdown by what we're doing today. So what is needed? We were talking about food. We always talk about the fat, the protein, but we don't talk about the enzyme. Enzymes are very important. Enzymes are the construction workers of the body. They use the vitamins and the minerals as building material to put up the latest architectural marvel, your body. Right? At times, there are ample supplies of building material, but not enough workers to complete the job. The building material will remain unused until enough workers show up at the job site. So if you don't have enough enzymes in your body, the fat that you ate is going to stay there and not be used. The vitamins that you took in, oh, I got my vitamins, I took my pills, the doctor gave me these pills, cannot be used if you don't have adequate amounts of enzyme. You see, food is useless unless there's enzymes. Now, let me ask you a question. Has anyone ever gone grocery shopping before? I know it's a strange question, but I have to ask the question because I don't want to assume. And while you're at the store, drop the fruit by mistake, maybe an apple or so. The question is, do you buy that fruit or do you put it back on the pile and get one that has not been dropped? The answer is usually you get one that has not been dropped. And the reason being, because we all know by the time you get that fruit home, it got a soft spot. And if you cut it, it is brown. What was taking place there was the enzyme or the enzymes were beginning the process of digestion. You see, when you hit a fruit, it breaks the molecule or the cell, and that triggers the response, digest, and the enzymes get to work. So if you drop the fruit or squeeze the banana, the enzyme begins the process of working. And it begins to break down the food because digestion, believe it or not, begins in the mouth, not in the stomach. Now, I didn't have time. I didn't think I'll be able to cover that because it's already 8:47. I was kind of correct. Most people think it's the acid in your stomach that breaks down the food. No, it just heats up your stomach, creates a balance so that the enzymes can work. The enzymes. And remember, like when you drop that fruit, it releases the enzyme to begin digesting the very food that they came packaged in. You see, the way God made food, he made it with the ability to break itself down. Because remember, he's the master designer. He knows how this body is to function, what it needs, and how to bring the supply. And so when he made the food, which was for man, it was filled with enzymes, which were not active until we began the process of eating. That's why they tell you to chew your food. So as you chew the food, the enzymes are being released and they begin the process of breaking down that food even before it begins to go down into your stomach. Digestion has begun. And that's what you want. Because if you are what you digest, that's why you eat. You want to have a strong mind to think clearly. You want to be able to make sure that your skin and your nails grow sufficiently. You want to digest your protein. You want the energy that's necessary to run the race or to deal with your children. That means your system has to be functioning correctly. and you have to be able to break down your food. Enzymes, that's what they're for. They are basically large protein molecules found in all living things. They're composed of two parts: a protein, apoenzyme, and which is basically a long chain of amino acids, right? And those amino acids attach to different foods, and they begin to work on that food to break it down. Then you have what you call a coenzyme, which is usually a mineral or a vitamin. Those two parts come together to form an enzyme. When that enzyme now comes in contact with your food, it begins the process of breaking it down into its different parts. This way, the body now can utilize those different parts and you remain healthy. And so we could get the vitamins and minerals, we could get that. But they cannot be broken down until there's an enzyme available in the system. Now, here's the thing. Most people, or most of the doctors, should I say, are not going to talk about you having insufficient enzymes. They don't talk about that because your body technically makes enzymes. However, they can be used up. So the question is not so much whether or not you can make them, but are you supplying resupplying what has been used up? You see, unless supplemental food enzymes are taken, our diets will continue to become deficient. Let me give you an example when you really see this. Someone is on antibiotics, bad infection, bad viral something, whatever it might be, and the doctor prescribes antibiotics because they have a bacterial infection. What happens sometimes, especially if you've been taking these antibiotics for a while, the doctor might say to you, go home and eat some yogurt. Or you might have heard this on TV, probiotics. You know what that is? Enzyme in a bottle. Why? Because they really recognize the importance of the enzyme. You see, right now, if you touch your stomach, you can't feel it. Enzymes are alive and well. And they're what breaking down your food. But if you're constantly using them up, but never replacing them faster than you can make them, you are setting yourself up for a breakdown in the future. So enzymes are probably the most important part of food. But here's the bad thing about enzymes. Enzymes are routinely taken out of food. Yeah. Why? I think I talked about this once before. Because food spoil. Enzymes are going to begin to digest automatically. You're picking them, the fruits get banged around, you trigger the enzymes, and they begin the process of eating itself. So I'm a farmer. I don't want to have all my harvest go to waste before I can sell it and make a profit. So what do I need to do? I need to find a way to remove the enzymes or to stop the enzymes from working. So I might become a manufacturer and I might make foods and then sell the foods rather than sell the items that I use to make the food. So let me give an example. Bread, whole grain bread. It spoils faster than white bread. Why? Because less processing. There's less processing of the bread. The more you process a food, meaning either cook it or what else do they do with food nowadays? Run it on the ultraviolet light or expose it to a lot of light, smash it. The more you deal with food to make it ready by some processing process, you are going to kill the vitamins, the minerals, and the enzymes. Manufacturers love that. Why? Because remember what an enzyme needs. It needs a coenzyme, which is usually a vitamin and mineral. And when they come together, they begin the digestive process. So if the manufacturer is sending food to ship, by the time it gets to its destination, the food has eaten itself. Nobody wants to buy it. But if you get rid of those things or put in artificial, so when you go to the store next time, you're going to see enriched bread, enriched minerals. That means they took out all the minerals and the enzymes so that it had a longer shelf life. See, that's why enzymes are important. This is how we become depleted. We eat a lot of processed foods, and the foods have been overcooked or sterilized or pasteurized, and all that God intentionally put in the food to break down the food has been removed so that those who are selling the product could sell it or have the product for a longer period of time. And what we don't realize is that the person is not going to get the nutrients that he needs. He might get an extended stomach because remember, unless we have the enzymes, the food sits there until the body can get the enzymes made or replenish the enzymes to break it down. If that doesn't occur, the food is going to be stored in fat. And the person will put on weight and become susceptible to heart disease, vascular disease, cholesterol, cancers. Why? Because the enzymes were missing. Really simple, not really complicated. Enzymes, they play a vital role in the digestion. They cause food to be broken down. Enzymes are often removed from foods to prolong the shelf life because they don't want the food to be delivered, as you see in this picture here, bruised. No one will buy it. I tell people they should really eat local. Don't ship your food for many reasons. Not only for the enzyme impact, but also the food that's grown where you live is designed to survive where you live. Now, if you ever traveled, say, I remember the first time I went to Mexico, everyone says, don't drink the water, right? Montezuma's revenge. When I go to Mexico, everybody there is drinking the water. They don't have a problem, right? But you drink that water, you will live in the bathroom for about 2 weeks. Why? The people who live there drink the water that comes from there. The food that grows where you are has the same impact. It is designed to survive in that area. So it takes in the appropriate amount of minerals and vitamins to make it strongest for the people who live in that territory. So when you're talking about getting a rich source of your vitamins and minerals, that is where you want to get it from. Food that's grown close to you. 3 minutes to 9. So why do I want to understand enzymes? How do they lead to breakdowns? They lead to breakdown because if I'm not getting them in my food today, what ultimately is going to happen, my body down the road is going to be deficient. It will lead to herniated disc, bursitis, cholesterol issues, high blood pressures, all from the lack of enzymes in your food. Obesity, cancer, enzymes. It's the food that we often overlook, right? Most people who acquire symptoms of musculoskeletal dysfunction, all these things, it's a result, I left it blank, of poor diet, lack of enzyme. That's what causes it. So when we're talking about a breakdown down the road, it's really because of what we're doing today. Today. The problem doesn't show up today. It shows up 30 years from now. You might have no sign of illness 30 years of your life. Everything was fine. Then you wake up one morning and you're 45 years old, you step out of your bed and you twist your ankle and you say, why did that happen? Because 20 years ago, you most likely had a diet insufficient in enzymes. Yeah. Let me tell you how far reaching this is. I have a lot of people says, well, my grandparents and my family, they lived to be 105. My father jokes to me about that. My uncle, my great uncle died at 99, and he said he didn't die of old age. He said he slipped. That's my uncle. My father says he slipped because my parents could live. Well, my mother died, but my father's side, they're 105, 107. They live unless they slip. And so he would always say, look what they ate. They ate meat. Let's go back to the type of meat they eat and the other foods that they ate. They ate food that was local, that was designed to live a prolonged life in that area. They ate far more live food. That means it wasn't enriched, but it actually had the enzyme in the food. They ate more fruits and vegetables, which are loaded with enzymes, which replaced the enzyme. So when they did eat the meat, guess what happened? The body could break it down. So illness comes as a result of the diet usually being deficient in adequate enzymes. How could I see it? How do I know it? Usually that stomach, watch that belly. That belly is over here. That means your intestinal walls are usually blocked. That means there's poor digestion taking place or absorption of whatever might have been digested. And usually the stomach tells me that we're not getting the fiber that's necessary, which tells me you're going to have high blood pressure and cholesterol level, cholesterol issues, just from your stomach. And I know that 10 years down the road, if it's 45, you're going to get back pain, herniated disc, arthritis, bursitis, leg cramps. I know it's coming. Why? Because you have a breakdown in what was designed to make you well. You don't have to tell me. I know it's going to happen. I'm not a fortune teller. But see, the master designer, God, he was the one who designed the system this way. And when we go against that plan, there is going to be a breakdown. Illness will come. Illness will follow. And you might have seemed to be healthy up until that point, but that's usually how it goes. Now, I wanted to define what illness is. I'll ask the question. I'm going to I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to stop this slide here. I'm going to ask the question, what is illness? Is it the absence of symptoms? Now, I wanted to ask that question because people say, well, I'm fine. I'm fine. That's what people tell me. I'm fine because I don't have symptoms. My voice is going to be gone by tomorrow. Got to preach in the morning, I have preach in the afternoon, and I have an evening program. I'm going to be voiceless by the time Sunday comes around. I know that's going to be the case. But what is illness? Is it the absence of symptoms? No. Maybe I'll do that next time. It's an imbalancement inside the system because of poor quality of food. Let me give an example, and I'm going to end with this note because it's already 9 o'clock. Oh, not O.J. Simpson, Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson, Irvin Johnson, former player of the Los Angeles Lakers, multi-millionaire. I think he's almost a billionaire now. He goes around, raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, matter of fact. So he's always at Oakwood, right? And he goes around, you see him on talk shows, and he's alive, he's active, he's having a great time with people, he's loving life. He has no symptoms, but yet he is HIV positive. Illness is not the absence of symptoms. So don't think just because you feel well today that a breakdown is not occurring inside of you. I want to close with this thought. Make sure you're eating live food. I don't care what you're eating. I do care what you're eating, but on top of that, this is not about what you're eating. Grab a whole lot of fruits and vegetables. Make it a plan. Don't do like the Americans. They say ketchup is vegetables. That's not vegetables in the process. Take fruits with you. And if you know you have a poor diet, take extra fruits with you. Why? Because you need to have that active enzymes in your system to break down the breakdown that's happening inside of you. And if you're brave, don't be afraid of that brown spot on that apple that you dropped because the enzymes are already working. You might just need that. So again, eat a lot of fresh vegetables so that we can have better health. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I'll take a few questions. I talked longer than I planned, but I will take a few questions if you have them.
Good evening, Helder. Thank you so much. Powerful presentation, Doc.
Thank
No
you.
wonder why the Bible says my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. So I pray that you will have continuous help to share and to build up the body of Christ. A question here. You made mention that the utilizes the minerals around it. However, when I was in Jamaica, omphri was used as a plant that basically cured any kind of sickness. Why not use the omphri in tea as rather than use it to water the plant and then heat it?
Now, the reason why I use it as the watering source because I don't like to buy fertilizer. And so it's the best way to get the fertilizer that you need for the plant. Now, you can use it as tea. You could use it to treat broken bones. It's very useful. So you could use it both ways. I have enough to do it both ways. I use it all the time. So it's growing all over the property. So I use it both ways. But when I'm trying to grow plants, I don't want artificial fertilizer. So the comfrey that I have around each different area, I use that to make plant food. And you only need a little bit. So say you had comfrey leaves to go big, but if you had a bunch, just something that fits in one hand, right? If you cut that up and put it in a 5 gallon tank, 5 gallon jug of water, stir it for 10 days in the sun, you're going to wind up with basically about 25 gallons of fertilizer. And you get the rest of the comfrey to dry, to make to use for anything. So yes, you can use it both ways. But I find that if you really want to get an inexpensive plant food, it's the best way to go, and you know it's natural.
Can you elaborate on some of the benefits from omphri while you're at it?
Um, the best thing I could think of comfrey, what can I think of comfrey? I want to say broken bones. We make a salve of it um, for bones, believe it or not. And so what we normally do, we'll take it, we'll grind it up, and then we'll use it as a paste. And we'll spread it over bones because of the high mineral content to strengthen the bones. So when a person is deficient in any kind of um, anything that comes up for deficiency because of vitamins and minerals, comfrey comes into be the player there because it's high in minerals. So say they're having mental issues, right? Because they're having problems concentrating. A comfrey tea might be very useful there. Most people won't tell you that, but the high mineral content is great for the brain power. If the person is suffering, say, a lot of achy pains and joints, now you could use it two ways: topically and ingest it. Because the issue with the joints is because usually the enzymes were not present and they were not able to utilize, okay, the minerals that they had. So you will give it as a tea because it's loaded with the minerals. Then you give them a lot of fruits so their body can utilize the minerals that they're getting from the tea. So just about anything that have a lot of aches and pains, comfrey can be very useful for it. It's too broad to just try to pick out anything specific. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Doc.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Chair, you don't have any question?
I promise I won't bite through the telephone.
John, I'm okay.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
Let me just say again, eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. Add it to your diet. And for those who are trying to lose some weight, here goes the trick. Here's the trick. I add food to anyone who's trying to lose weight. So if you know anyone who's trying to lose weight, here's what you want them to do. 10 minutes before whatever meal they love to eat, or all their meals, tell them to go and get a biggest apple they can wash it off nice and clean, and eat it. Add apples to your diet before you eat, 10 minutes before you eat, and then go down and do whatever you're going to do with your food. You will lose weight. 2 reasons. The enzymes from the apple are going to be present in your gut when you do eat, and the fiber in the apple is going to tell you don't eat so much when you do eat. Those 2 reasons alone are going to help you to lose weight and to utilize the vitamins and minerals that you get from whatever you do eat. So that's a little.
Yeah, American apple, that?
Whatever apple you like. Now, let me, before I say that, is this. If you know you have, say, diabetes, because it's a real thing for a lot of people, or if you have, well, I'm just going to say diabetes, eat a green apple rather than a red apple. But if you don't, get the biggest apple you can find. And it's for anybody. Just eat the apple. Just clean it off, eat skin and all. Don't eat the seeds, of course, but eat the apple. And if the person who is struggling, say, with cancer, it goes something else you can do. Not only eat the apple, but I might switch the apple for an apricot or a peach. And when you finish with the apple, get a hammer. A hammer. You know that seed inside of the peach or the apricot? Smash it and eat that too. Not the shell, but the seed inside. What's inside is going to help the body fight the cancer, besides get rid of the fat. Okay, it's vitamin B17 or Laetrile. Yeah. It builds up in the system and it will make you burn off fat and destroy cancer cells. So that's basically it. I add food to the diet. So anyone who's struggling with weight or cholesterol issues, before you eat, get a big apple, wash it nice and clean, eat it 10 minutes before your meal, and do it with each meal, and you will see an amazing recovery. Why? The master designer has a plan to save you and give you better quality of life. All righty. My voice got better, I think. All right.
Doc,
Mhm.
one final question. I know you're pressed for time. I'll be praying for that voice, so you don't have to worry about the voice.
Amen.
What you made mention about losing weight, but what about a vegetarian that would want to put on a few pounds? What's the recommendation?
Eat more. Now,
Carbohydrates.
the reason why I say that, because you see what happens. I just did a program not too long ago, and it was a diabetes program, and I had a lady there who was thin, and we changed her diet up, and she came in and she was losing weight. She said, "What am I going to do?" I said, "Don't worry, you'll reach your point that God designed you, and you'll stay there." You see, when you become a vegetarian, you're going to reach the weight that God, the master designer, said is best for you. That's what's going to happen. That's best for you. And that's really where you should be. But if you do want to gain some weight, then you might have to increase the protein, and you might want to increase the amount of nuts that you eat. When you eat those nuts, add another apple. Because the nuts, or what's another thing that people love that I'm not a big fan of? Avocado. They're high in fat, and the fat will help you to hold on to more weight, but fat can be problematic. So you want to make sure that you add an apple to it, because you want to get the enzyme activated so that it doesn't really create a problem for you. So eat more food, mainly protein, some starches, and that will make you retain weight. And you might eat 4 meals a day rather than 3. I hope that helps.
So that if I'm going to eat vegetable, can I have the apple 10 minutes before I eat the vegetable?
Yes. Now, let me ask you a question. How are you making the vegetables or vegetables? Are you boiling them, steaming them, roasting them, baking them?
Steam.
You steaming
Steam.
them? How
Yeah,
long are you
I
going to steam them?
follow
Until
that.
they just get dark?
Yes.
So you really don't need the apple. And I'll tell you why. The inside the steamed vegetables, the enzymes are still alive.
Oh.
Yeah. But if you boil it or steam it too long, the enzymes are going to die.
Mm.
But if you steal it till they turn a dark color, like broccoli, it turns a dark root, oh, the enzymes are ready to kick in and work. And so that now, when you eat that, your enzymes are actively already. Just make sure that you chew your food well. So yes, if you're eating vegetables and you steam them, as long as you don't overcook them till the vegetables are wilting, you should be fine. You don't need to do the apple unless you're trying to lose weight. Now, if you're trying to lose weight and you're eating the vegetables, still eat the apple. Because what happens, the apple skin has pectin in it, but it also has more fiber. And that fiber is what actually sends the message to your brain and says, stop eating, you're full.
And
so
we are told that we are told that we should peel especially the American apple.
yeah, that's because Americans like to use pesticides.
Yeah,
So
okay.
when you get the American apple, this is what you do. You get a knife, a butter knife, and you scrape the skin, right? Really slightly.
Yeah.
Not to cut into it, but right on the surface. And you're going to notice, if you see stuff coming off of it,
yes,
the pesticides. They use a wax pesticide.
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, and you can't just cut the skin off and then eat the rest of the apple. But that's what American apples have. They have wax pesticides to keep the bugs from penetrating the skin. And that's where the problem is.
Okay. Thank you, Doc.
You're more than welcome. All righty. I think we have, wait a minute. I see something here. Let me check this before I say okay. Oh, all righty. We're good with that. All right, folks, it was a pleasure. Keep me in prayer. I got to travel.
We will.
All right, let's have a closing word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we just want to give you thanks. I want to thank you especially because my voice is still here. And I know that it was going on vacation. So I want to thank you for your power to do what seems impossible for my body to do. As we have learned these information for this evening, I pray that we will use them in our lives. We employ them, that we will do these small things to prevent the bigger problem down the road. I know that when I opened up the scripture, it said that Caleb was 120 and his eyes were not dim. And so I know that your design, your plan was for us to be strong until our last days. So give us all that wisdom to look to you and trust you with our health and our lives, so that we can be the people that you want us to be, that an example, so that when others see us, they know that you are living in us. Thank you, Lord, for this Sabbath evening. And now as we are in these hours, help us to keep our minds stayed and fixed on you. Be with me as I prepare to travel, and then watch us all. Keep us until you come. Save us. Why? Because we cannot save ourselves, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All righty, folks. Have a wonderful Sabbath. God willing.
Amen. Happy Sabbath to you, everyone. God
Happy
bless.
Sabbath. Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Let me stop.
Happy Sabbath.